I was born and raised in Pyongyang. My father was a cook too. He spent over 30 years at one of the city's biggest restaurants. I grew up learning knife skills at his side, starting with something as simple as peeling potatoes. I was 10 the first time I made noodles on my own. My father looked at what I'd done and said, "Jung-soo, you've got a gift. This is your path." So I enrolled in culinary school, the Pyongyang Culinary Institute, the most prestigious one in North Korea. I spent 5 years there. At graduation, I ranked third in my class. That same day, I was suddenly summoned. "Comrade Park Jong-soo, come with us." 2 men in black led me away. My legs were shaking. I thought I'd done something wrong. But when we arrived, it was a Central Party committee building. They interviewed me there. The questions were strange. Do you have any relatives who defected to the South? Anyone in your family who practices religion? Have you ever listened to South Korean music? Not a single question about cooking. They only wanted to know about my family background and my ideological loyalty. I waited a week. Then another summons came somewhere higher up this time. "Comrade Park Jong-soo, starting today you have a special assignment." I was 23 years old. From that day on, I was responsible for the Supreme Leader's meals. At first, that meant Chairman Kim Jong-il. After he died, I took charge of Chairman Kim Jong-un's food. My title was elite chef. Fewer than 10 people in all of North Korea held that title. We lived in a completely different world from ordinary cooks. You may not know this, there's a 17-story apartment building in Pyongyang. Regular citizens couldn't even dream of living there. I lived on the 15th floor. From my window, the Taedong River spread out like a painting. My children attended a special school. On top of our regular rations, we received foreign goods, Japanese soy sauce, Chinese sesame oil, even French butter. My wife worked at Pyongyang's most exclusive department store, a place only senior officials could enter. Ordinary citizens couldn't get near the front door. She had that job because of my position. By North Korean standards, we were living at the very top. I was happy, genuinely. But there was a price for all of it. The most terrifying part of my job was something called food tasting. Every dish prepared for the Supreme Leader had to be tested first, in case it was poisoned. That was my role. 3 of us rotated through the duty. Each morning when I finished a pot of soup, I'd take 1 spoonful first. Then I'd wait 30 minutes. Only if nothing went wrong would the dish go up to the Supreme Leader. I did this for 20 years. Over 20,000 tastings. Most of the time, nothing happened. But exactly three times, I watched a colleague collapse. They'd finish tasting and suddenly go down, convulsing. They never came back. I never found out where they went. You weren't allowed to ask. Every time it happened, I thought next time it could be me. But I never thought about running. I couldn't. My family was there. If I fled, what would happen to my wife and children? There's a system called Yunjuaje guilt by association, one person's crime. Pulls 3 generations into the camps, so I endured 20 years. I followed orders without thinking. I stayed loyal. Then last summer, something strange happened. One day, a new man showed up. He looked to be around 35. His name was Choi Dong-cheol. They said he was a newly appointed elite chef. At first, I didn't think much of it. More cooks meant less work for me. But something was off. He started following me everywhere morning to night, standing at my side, asking questions one after another. "Senior, how do you balance this seasoning?" "Senior, is this temperature right?" "Senior, why do you do it this way?" Learning was fine, but the urgency was wrong. A new hire normally spends at least a year watching and learning. This man was trying to replicate everything I did within a single month. And his eyes. Every time he looked at me, there was something calculating in them. Not competition. It was the look of a predator sizing up prey. Then one day, the Ministry of State Security officer, who oversaw our kitchen, a man named Ri Cheol, called me in. He smiled and said, "Comrade Park, you're not looking well lately. Are you sick?" I told him I was fine. "I'm healthy. Don't worry." He nodded slowly. "Good. You should take care of yourself. Comrade Choi is learning fast. You'll be able to rest soon. You've worked hard all these years. You deserve a break." A chill ran down my spine. A break? In North Korea, that word has 2 meanings: real rest or the permanent kind. I'd spent 20 years in that world. I could read the room. Something was very wrong. A few days later, Ri Cheol called me in again. "Comrade Park, from now on, when Comrade Choi prepares a practice meal, you'll inspect it and do the tasting. He's still inexperienced, we need your eye on it. Once he's ready, we'll put him in the rotation. Inspect and taste. A new hire who'd been there less than a month, already being fast-tracked to real duty. Normally, that took a year, 6 months at the absolute fastest. Someone powerful was pushing this from behind. I said, "Understood. We'll start tomorrow." But that night, lying in bed, I couldn't stop turning it over. Inspect and taste. The more I thought about it, the more it twisted in my stomach. Choi Dong-cheol would prepare the food. I'd inspect it. If it looked fine, I'd be the one who ate it first. The last checkpoint before anything reached the supreme leader. And if something was in that food, they could call it an accident during inspection, a clean way to remove me, and Choi would slide right into my place. Stop it. I've been loyal for 20 years. They wouldn't do that. I tried to talk myself down, but the dread wouldn't leave. The next morning was the first day of the inspection and tasting. I walked into the kitchen with Choi Dong-cheol. The prep table was already set, 4 side dishes and rice, all laid out. His practice spread. Enamel greens, kimchi, braised fish, steamed egg. I examined each one. Color, presentation, portions. Nothing to fault. Honestly, it surprised me. This level of skill from someone with only a month of training? This wasn't a month's work. This was years of preparation. Where did this man actually come from? Who sent him and why? The questions piled up, but I couldn't let any of it show. The sides are done. I'll start the soup now, senior. Choi began cooking. I watched from beside him. Ingredient prep, heat control, seasoning. Flawless. The man had real talent. But what unsettled me most was how familiar his hands were with everything moving through that kitchen. Like someone who'd worked there for decades. He knew exactly where every seasoning and every tool was kept. No new hire should know that. Someone had shown him. I was certain of it. He hadn't just walked in off the street. He was moving according to someone's plan. The meal was finished. I started with the side dishes, a bite of enamel, a piece of kimchi, a chunk of fish, a spoonful of steamed egg. Then I waited 30 minutes. Nothing wrong. Only the soup was left. Past that and the inspection was complete. Next time, this meal would go straight to the supreme leader. I'd never seen a new hire move this fast in 20 years. Something was here, I just couldn't see what it was. That made it worse. I picked up my spoon and stood in front of the soup bowl. I was about to lower it into the broth when I heard a voice from the doorway. Dad. It was Minho, my 12-year-old son, peering through a crack in the door. I set down the spoon and turned. Minho, Dad's working. Come talk to me at home later. He had a habit of stopping by after school sometimes. But this was the middle of an inspection. This wasn't the time. Minho didn't move. Dad, just for a second. It's really quick. Not now. Go home. I'll see you there. I picked up the spoon again. Dad. His voice was more urgent this time. Shaking. It's important. Please come out. Just 1 minute. Something was wrong. Minho never did this when I was working. He knew to wait quietly when I was busy. But his eyes, they weren't right. I could feel the urgency coming off him. I looked back at Choi Dong-cheol. Give me a minute. I'll be right back. Choi nodded. Of course, senior. Take your time. I stepped into the hallway. Minho grabbed my arm and pulled me into a corner somewhere out of earshot. Minho, what is it? What's wrong? He looked up at me. His face was rigid. His eyes were full of something I'd never seen there before. Fear. Dad, earlier, Earlier what? I was waiting outside the door. I was going to call for you. Okay. Minho dropped his voice lower, almost a whisper. That man, the new one. You mean Choi Dong-cheol? Yeah. He put something in your soup bowl. I saw it. My body went cold. What? What did he put in it? What did you see? He took something small out of his pocket. It looked like white powder. He put it in the soup you were going to eat. Then he stirred it with a spoon. I looked my son in the eyes. Minho couldn't lie. When he lied, he couldn't hold eye contact. But right now, he was looking straight at me, trembling. Terrified, but looking straight at me. Minho, are you sure? You didn't misread it? No, Dad. I was watching through the gap in the door. You were tasting the side dishes, and he put it in then when you weren't looking. My heart was slamming against my ribs. So while I was eating the side dishes, that man slipped something into my soup. I grabbed Minho's shoulders. Good job. You did the right thing telling me. But don't tell anyone else, not even Mom. I'll tell her myself later. Minho nodded. Dad, is that man bad? I couldn't answer. I just ran my hand over his head. Go straight home. I'll be there soon. After he left, I stood in the hallway for a moment. My hands were shaking. 20 years of loyalty. 20 years of walking into that kitchen every single morning. And they were going to end me like this. Then everything locked into place. Why Choi Dong-chol appeared out of nowhere. Why he was being rushed into real duty so fast. Why I was the one assigned to inspect and taste his food. All of it was planned. Remove me, install Choi, clean and quiet. I didn't know who gave the order, the Ministry of State, security, or someone above them. But one thing was clear, I was already a discarded card. I couldn't make a scene. 'Cause any trouble here and it was over. Dragged into state security, never coming out. I had to act like I knew nothing. I took a slow breath and walked back into the kitchen. Choi was standing in front of the soup bowl. When he saw me, he smiled. Back already, Senior? Everything okay with your son? Yeah, nothing serious. I kept my voice flat. Then I walked to the prep table. The soup bowl sat there. The soup Choi had made. If what Minho saw was real, that bowl was poisoned. I picked it up. Choi watched me. Are you going to taste it now, Senior? I shook my head. Not today. I need to get back. My son might have a fever. We'll finish tomorrow. Right now? Yeah. Sorry about this. We'll pick it up again tomorrow. I carried the soup bowl to the sink, and in full view of Choi Dong-cheol, I poured it down the drain. Senior, why are you dumping the soup? It went cold. You can't do a proper inspection on cold soup. Make a fresh batch tomorrow. His expression cracked just for a second, but I caught it. The flinch. Understood. See you tomorrow, Senior. See you tomorrow. I walked out of the kitchen. In the hallway, I could feel his eyes on the back of my neck. I didn't turn around. I walked the way I always did, like nothing had happened. That evening, I told my wife everything. The color drained from her face. Then what do? We run. Right now. Her eyes went wide. Defect? Now? Yes, there's no time. Choi saw that I didn't drink the soup. He knows something's up. If we stay, our whole family is in danger. She was quiet for a long moment. Then she nodded. If you say go, we go. I've trusted you for 20 years. That hit me somewhere deep. I took her hand. We have 24 hours. If we're not gone by tomorrow night, it's over. I checked the clock. Just past 11 p.m. 24 hours. We didn't sleep. We sat across from each other and built a plan while the kids were asleep. Minho and our 8-year-old daughter, Yoonji, who had no idea what was happening. We need a broker, my wife said. I already knew that. Defecting isn't something you do alone. You need someone who knows the route to the border, the crossing into China, everything that comes after. The problem was I had no idea where to find one. I'd spent 20 years in Pyongyang and never once thought about defecting. I didn't know anyone who had. I didn't know what a broker even looked like. Then my wife said, I know someone. Who? Someone I met working at the department store. A trader who brings goods in from China. He once mentioned quietly that for the right price, he could move people too. I stared at her. Can we trust him? I don't know. But do we have another option? We didn't. There was no time. At 2 a.m., my wife made contact. How? She had a Chinese cell phone she'd been keeping hidden. Illegal in North Korea, caught with one, and you go straight to a prison camp. She'd quietly gotten hold of it while working at the store, just in case. That phone saved our lives, she called. The line rang, once, twice, 3 times. Then it cut off. My stomach dropped. What if he doesn't pick up? 5 minutes later, the phone rang back. Unknown number. My wife answered. A man's voice, older, rough. Who is this? Why are you calling at this hour? My wife answered. Teacher Huang, it's me, Kim Soon, from the first department store. Something urgent has come up. I need to move 4 people. My family. Right now. A long silence. Then, how soon? 24 hours. That's impossible. I need time to prepare. There is no time. I took the phone. Teacher Huang. I'm Park Jong-soo, elite chef at the Central Party Committee. The breathing on the other end stopped. That title landed. Elite chef. You mean you handle Kim Jong-un's meals? For 20 years. And now I'm in danger. If we're not gone by tomorrow, my whole family is finished. Another silence. Long this time. Then, do you have money? How much do you need? 4 people, 130 million won. South Korean won, not North Korean. That was an enormous sum. A North Korean worker earns maybe 3,000 won a month, a few cents in real terms. 130 million won was more than any ordinary person could save in a lifetime. But over 20 years as an elite chef, I'd accumulated special rations, some foreign currency, and my wife had quietly set aside money of her own. I have it. Can you make it work? A pause. Fine, but 24 hours is too tight. I need until this evening at the latest. What time? 6 p.m. Meet me on the outskirts of Sinuiju. I'll get you to the Tuman River from there. I checked the clock. 2:30 a.m. Sinuiju was about 137 miles from Pyongyang. 5 hours minimum by car with multiple checkpoints along the way. We'll be there by 6. And park, don't let anything show. Act normal. Understood. The line went dead. I looked at my wife. Her eyes were wet. Is this really happening? Yes. There's no going back. Saying it out loud, I felt it too. 20 years in Pyongyang, the city where I was born. My parents, my siblings, my friends all here. All of it left behind. But there was no choice. Stay and we die. Not just me, my wife Minho Yoonji. All of them. There was only one direction. Forward. At 3 a.m. we started packing. Here's something most people don't know: when you defect, you can't take much. Too much luggage draws attention. One small bag with only the essentials. We took 2 bags between us, a few changes of clothes, some cash, and one family photograph. That was it. 20 years of a life left behind. The furniture, the dishes, the books. My wife wept quietly as she looked around the room. What about Yoonji's stuffed rabbit? I shook my head. No. If she's carrying a toy, people will ask where we're going. It felt like something was tearing inside me. An 8-year-old girl, and we couldn't let her bring her one favorite thing. At 4 a.m., we woke the children. Minho was up instantly. He'd barely slept after the night before, his eyes puffy. Dad, are we going now? Yes. Stay quiet. Don't tell anyone. He nodded. 12 years old, and he already understood everything. Unji was the problem. Wake an 8-year-old at 4 in the morning. And you know what happens? She started fussing immediately. Why are you waking me up? I'm sleepy. My wife held her close. Yoonji, we're going to Grandma's house. Won't that be fun? Grandma's house? We have to leave early, so the roads aren't busy. Come on, let's wash up. She went along with it, still half asleep. She didn't know yet. At 5 a.m., we left the apartment. The hallway was silent, everyone else still asleep. We moved without a sound, taking the stairs instead of the elevator. On the ground floor, I looked outside. Still dark. A pale glow from the streetlights. Then I saw a black car parked in front of the building. My heart stopped. I knew that car. State security. Black, all windows covered. When one of those cars showed up, someone got taken. I pulled my family back. Wait. Don't move. My wife grabbed my arm. Her hand was trembling. I know that car. Stay quiet. I pressed close to the ground floor window and watched. 1 minute passed. 2. The car door didn't open. Nobody inside, or were they watching us? Then Minho whispered, Dad, isn't that section Chief Park's car from the 3rd floor? I looked again. The license plate wasn't state security. Similar shape, different car. The man on the 3rd floor drove a black car too. I almost laughed. Fear had made me see things that weren't there. It's nothing. Let's go. We slipped out of the building and made our way through the back alleys to the main road. We needed a taxi. But at 5 a.m. in Pyongyang, that's not easy. Public transit barely runs, and we had 137 miles to cover. 20 minutes passed with nothing. Then, down the road, headlights. A freight truck, loaded and moving. I waved it down. It stopped. The driver leaned out. What is it? Are you heading toward Sinuiju? Just to Pyeongchang. That's as far as I go. Pyeongchang, about 19 miles north of Pyongyang. Not even close to Sinuiju. But getting moving mattered more than getting there. Just to Pyeongchang is fine. I'll pay you. The driver looked at us, my wife. 2 small children, bags in hand, standing in the dark before dawn. Something was off about the picture, and he probably knew it. Visiting relatives in the countryside. My mother-in-law is ill. We have to go. He nodded. Get in the back. We climbed into the cargo hold and squeezed between sacks of rice. Dusty, rough, but none of that mattered. Getting out of Pyongyang was all that counted. As the truck moved through the city, I watched through a gap in the slats. Kim Il-sung Square slid past. The Yucha Tower. The city where I'd spent my whole life shrinking behind us. I knew I wasn't coming back. But the outer checkpoint was the first real test. To leave Pyongyang, you have to pass through a checkpoint identity inspection. Ordinary citizens can't even enter the city from outside, let alone leave without scrutiny. The truck stopped. A soldier approached, rifle in hand. ID. The driver handed his over. The soldier checked it, then looked into the cargo hold. Who's back there? I climbed out with my family. I'm Park Jong-soo, Central Party Committee. Elite chef. I showed him my credentials. His eyes went wide. Ah, yes, sir. Where are you headed? My mother-in-law is ill. We're going to Sinuiju. He looked at my wife, then at Yunji, who was drooping against her mother, half asleep. Is this your family? Yes. He thought for a moment, then nodded. Go ahead. We were through. Back in the cargo hold, I wiped the sweat from my hands. They were still shaking. And that was just the beginning. At least 3 more checkpoints between us and Sinuiju. We got out at Pyongyang just after 7 a.m. The sun was rising, people starting to fill the streets. We moved toward the market without drawing attention. What now? My wife asked. The kids were worn down, especially Yunji, who had started whining again. Hungry. Dad, I want food. I spotted a small noodle shop nearby. Let's eat in there. We went in. 4 bowls. The kids ate fast. I put a few forkfuls in my mouth, but couldn't taste anything. It just went down. Then my wife leaned in. Look, in the corner of the shop, 2 men in dark clothing, sitting there, watching us. My heart lurched. State security? I kept eating as naturally as I could. I caught Minho's eye and gave him a small look. He felt it too. I could see the tension in him. 5 minutes passed. The 2 men stood up, headed toward us, then walked straight past, paid at the counter, and left. They'd just been eating. I let out a slow breath. I was seeing threats in every corner. At this rate, I'd have a heart attack before we ever reached the border. After the meal, we went to the market to find transport. In North Korea, public buses exist but run infrequently. Most people rely on private rides, paying for a spot in someone's vehicle. They're called siovicha. It took an hour at the market entrance just to find one going towards Sinuiju, a private car already carrying 6 passengers. How much to Sinuiju? 50,000 won per person. That's a few dollars in real terms. 4 of us, 200,000 won. We squeezed in. 10 people in one small car. Unji sat on my lap. Hot, cramped, but we had no choice. From Pyongyang to Sinuiju was roughly 118 miles, about 4 to 5 hours. 2 more checkpoints ahead. The first was at Suncheon, about an hour out. The car stopped. A soldier looked in. Everyone ID. All 10 people showed their cards one by one. I showed my elite chef credentials. He stared at them. Central Party Committee. What brings you all the way out here? My mother-in-law is seriously ill. We're going to Sinuiju. It's urgent. He looked at my wife and children, then at the other passengers. Step out, please. My chest seized. Why are they pulling us out? We climbed out. A soldier took us into a small office inside the checkpoint building. Another soldier sat at a desk higher ranking by the look of him. Comrade Park Jong-soo? Yes. Why would an elite chef suddenly be leaving Pyongyang? I swallowed. As I said, my mother-in-law is very ill. Where does she live? Sinuiju. He stared at me, the kind of look that's trying to find a crack. Anything unusual happening in Pyongyang lately? Nothing. Everything is normal. Are you certain? Yes. Silence. He shuffled papers on his desk. My legs felt hollow. Then Yunji started crying. Daddy, I'm scared. Why are we here? I want to go to Grandma's house. The soldier looked at her. Something in his face shifted. I pressed forward. Comrade, she's just a little girl. She doesn't understand. Her grandmother is very sick and she's frightened. Please, let us go. He sat with it for a long moment, then nodded. Go. But Comrade Park, when you arrive in Sinuiju, report to the local state security office. Pyongyang residents are required to register when they travel to another city. You know the procedure. Understood. A lie. There was no way I was walking into a state security office. This testimony has never been shared with Western audiences. For 2 decades, Park Jong-soo served as one of fewer than 10 elite chefs responsible for Kim Jong-un's meals, a position that required him to taste every dish, first risking poisoning over 20,000 times. When a suspicious new colleague appeared, and his son witnessed white powder being slipped into his soup, Park had 24 hours to escape Pyongyang with his family. What follows is the most detailed account of life inside North Korea's ruling elite and the harrowing month-long journey to freedom. For more exclusive testimonies like this, subscribe and become part of our investigative community. Your support makes these stories possible. We returned to the car. The other passengers looked irritated. We'd held everyone up for nearly 30 minutes. I'm sorry. I kept my head down and took my seat. My wife gripped my hand. Her fingers were ice. The second checkpoint at Anju was mercifully brief. ID check, then waved through. The officer at Sunshine must have already cleared us in the system. By 3 p.m., we finally reached the outskirts of Sinuiju. We stepped out of the car. My legs nearly gave out over 10 hours of pure tension. Call Teacher Huang, I told my wife. Find out where we're meeting. She took out the Chinese phone. The battery was almost gone. We're almost out of power. Call now. She dialed. It rang. No answer. Once, twice, 3 times. Why isn't he picking up? I don't know. Then 5 minutes later, the phone rang. Teacher Huang. We're in Sinuiju? Where do we go? There's an abandoned factory on the edge of town. Be there by 6. Don't be late. 3:30 now. Understood. The line dropped. The problem reaching the abandoned factory meant cutting through the city center, where there was another checkpoint. And that soldier at Suncheon had told us to report to local state security. If he'd actually sent word ahead, they might already know we were coming. I looked at my wife. We can't go through the city. Then how? We walk. Through the hills. Her face tightened. With the children? There's no other way. Getting caught at a checkpoint would be the end. I looked at Minho. Can you walk for a while? He nodded. Yes, Dad. Unji was the question. Could an 8-year-old manage a hillside trail? I picked her up. I'll carry you on my back. Hold on. She wrapped around me. We left the road and pushed into the hills, crossing embankments, climbing a low ridge, threading through narrow paths. 2 hours of walking. At 5:50 p.m., the abandoned factory came into view. An old industrial building, long since shuttered. Walls crumbling, weeds everywhere, windows shattered. I called out quietly. No answer. I called again. Teacher Huang. It's Park Jong-soo. We're here as agreed. Movement from inside the factory, a man emerged. Mid-50s, worn jacket, cap pulled low. Cutting it close. We had to take the long way. Here's the money. I handed over the cash converted into U.S. dollars beforehand, a thick bundle worth 130 million won. He counted it carefully, then nodded. Follow me. We leave now. Right now? We need to reach the Tuman River before dawn. We cross at night. I looked back at my family. My wife, Minho, Yunji still on my back. This was it. The Tuman River. Teacher Huang led us along a narrow path behind the factory, overgrown and barely visible. We moved in single file, Teacher Huang, then my wife, then me carrying Yunji with Minho behind us. No talking, not even a whisper. We nodded. After about 30 minutes, a small cluster of houses appeared. Maybe 5 or 6 buildings. Teacher Huang went into one. Rest here. We move when it gets dark. It was a rundown farmhouse. 1 room. No heat running, so the air was cold. We huddled together in the corner. Teacher Huang spread out a hand-drawn map, rough shapes, a few markings. We're here. He pointed to a spot. The Tuman River is about 9 miles out. 4 hours on foot through the hills. We can't take the road. Patrols will catch us. 4 hours. I checked the time. 6:30 p.m. 4 hours meant arriving at the river around 10:30. When do we cross? Midnight. Between midnight and 2 a.m. is the safest window. That's when the guards are least alert. He pointed to another spot on the map. Someone is waiting on the Chinese side. They'll take you somewhere safe from there. How deep is the river? He thought for a moment. It's summer, the water's high. Chest deep in places. We'll find the shallowest crossing. Chest deep. I looked at Yunji. How does an 8-year-old cross chest-high water? What do we do with the child? She goes on your back. No other way. He reached into his bag and handed us a black plastic sleeve. Put your money in anything critical in here. It's waterproof. I took it. Any kind of flotation device. Something to keep her above the water. He shook his head. Anything like that makes us visible. We travel light. My wife asked, are there soldiers at the river? Border guards patrol on rotation. Every time a patrol passes, there's a 20-minute gap. That's our window. 20 minutes to cross the Tuman River. Teacher Huang checked his watch. Eat something. We leave at 8. He brought out rice balls from the kitchen. Plain rice pressed tight with salt. 4 of them. Eat. You'll need the energy. We ate. The kids ate too. Unji managed half of hers. I'm not hungry. I sat her on my knee. Just a little longer, Yunji. We'll have all the good food you want when we get to Grandma's. Why is Grandma's house so far away? It's always been far. That's why we couldn't visit often. A lie. We weren't going to any grandmother's house. But I couldn't tell her that. After eating, the others fell asleep quickly, exhausted. I couldn't. I lay on my back staring at the ceiling, thinking, what am I doing? I was walking away from everything I'd built over 20 years. My home, my career, my parents, my friends, people I'd never see again. People I'd probably never see for the rest of my life. But turning back wasn't an option. Turn back and we die. All four of us. There was only one direction. At 8 p.m., Teacher Huang woke us. Time to go. We gathered our things and stepped outside. The sun was going down, the sky turning red over the hills. Over that ridge, that's the river. 4 hours. It's hard going, but you'll make it. Teacher Huang led the way. The mountain trail began. The first hour was manageable. Steep in places, but passable. Then it got harder. Rocks jutted out everywhere, tree roots crossed the path, and the dark closed in around us. No flashlights, any light could alert a patrol. Yunji started squirming on my back. Dad, I'm scared. Why is it so dark? Stay quiet. Almost there. My wife held Minho's hand. He walked in silence the whole way, 12 years old, not a single complaint. 2 hours in, we'd reached the middle of the ridge. When Teacher Huang suddenly froze, we all stopped. What is it? Quiet. He tilted his head, listening. In the distance, a dog barking. Is that a patrol? Border patrol dogs. Stay still. We held our breath. The barking got closer, then faded. Teacher Huang gave a small nod. We're clear. Keep moving. Past 10 p.m., we finally cleared the ridge. Below us, something glimmered. The Tuman River, silver in the moonlight. Something that beautiful standing between us and everything. Teacher Huang said, 30 minutes to the bank. We wait there until midnight. We move down through the brush, careful and quiet. Across the water, China. A handful of lights. A village over there. All we had to do was get to it. The river looked maybe 150, 160 feet wide. Not impossible, but down at the bank we could see the guard post. A light inside. And every so often a flashlight beam sweeping along the water. Patrol. Teacher Huang whispered, 1 patrol rotation per hour. After they pass, we have 20 minutes. That's our window. I checked my watch. 11 to 15 p.m. 45 minutes to midnight. As midnight approached, the temperature dropped. Summer night, but cold near the water. Unji was shaking against my back. I pulled off my jacket and draped it over her. Almost over. Somewhere warm soon. Teacher Huang kept checking his watch, then nodded. Now, move. We worked our way down to the bank, pushing quietly through the brush. About 300 feet from the guard post when the flashlight swept again. Down. We hit the ground fast, pressing into the grass, Yunji tucked beneath me. The beam passed within 15 feet of us. Soldiers' footsteps, dry grass crunching beneath boots. The sound moved away. 1 minute. 2. Teacher Huang lifted his head. 20 minutes. Go. We ran to the bank. The sound of moving water. The Tuman close now. Teacher Huang stepped in first to test it. Temperature is okay. Cold but manageable. I put my foot in. Cold, much colder than I expected. And I had to bring the children through this. My wife reached for Yunji. Let me carry her. You're too short. If the deep section hits your chest, she goes under. I'll take her. I took Yunji back onto my back and my wife tied Yunji's legs around my waist with a strip of cloth so she couldn't slip off. Teacher Huang said, I'll take you as far as the middle. My partner is waiting there. He'll guide you the rest of the way into China. I have to come back. More people are waiting. He extended his hand. I took it. Good luck to you, Park. Thank you for everything. He turned and disappeared into the dark. Just us now. I looked at my family in the moonlight, my wife's face, Minho's, scared. Resolved. Do not let go of each other. Whatever happens, hold on. My wife nodded. Minho nodded. I stepped into the water. My wife took my hand. Minho took hers. The cold hit hard ankles, knees, thighs. Summer, but a bit like winter. The riverbed was slick with stones, and keeping balance was harder than I expected. 1 step at a time. Easy. Rushing means falling. Yunji's arms tightened around my neck. Dad, the water's cold. I know. Hold on. Almost there. Then the bottom dropped out. Hip deep became chest deep in a few steps. My wife gasped. I can't keep my footing. Her head was barely above water. Hold my hand. Don't let go. I pulled her along with one arm, fighting the current with the other. Minho was fighting to keep his chin above water, but he didn't cry out. That 12-year-old held on. Then from behind a sound. A low mechanical whir. Radios. I turned. Multiple flashlight beams swept the bank we just left. Voices. Stop right there. They'd spotted us. Move. Now. I drove through the water as hard as I could, pulling my wife, pulling the current's resistance. Behind us, something hit the water, a warning shot, or rocks thrown. I couldn't tell. Splash. Splash. Keep going. Across the halfway point now. China getting closer. 50 feet. 40, 30. Then Yunji started crying full, open crying she couldn't stop. I'm scared, Daddy, I'm scared. Quiet, please. But 8 years old and terrified. She kept crying. Then my wife went under. Her foot slipped on a stone, and she went straight down, her hand tearing free of mine. Hey! I spun toward her. She was thrashing beneath the surface. Minho lunged for her arm. Mom! Mom! I grabbed Yunji with one hand and hauled my wife up with the other. She came up coughing. I'm okay. I'm okay. Keep moving. We pushed forward. The soldiers were shouting from the bank. Stop. Come back. We weren't going back. Not ever. 20 feet. 10, 5, then my foot found rising ground. The riverbed climbing. Hip deep. Knee deep. Ankle deep. We walked out of the water. Chinese soil. We'd made it. But we couldn't stop. North Korean soldiers could still cross. Into the brush. Now. I pulled my family off the bank and into the undergrowth. Then someone stepped out of the dark toward us. A man approaching calmly. Park Jong-soo? Korean with a Chinese accent. Teacher Huang's contact. Yes. That's me. Follow me. Quickly. He led us through 10 minutes of darkness until a small hut appeared. No lights, windows dark, walls rotting. Rest here. Change out of those clothes. He opened the door. Inside, a heated floor, and in the corner, dry clothing laid out for us. We stripped off our soaked clothes and changed. The warmth hit all at once. My wife held Yunji, who was still hiccuping through the last of her tears. It's over, Yunji. It's all over. You're safe. Minho sat down next to me. Dad, what happens now? I put my hand on his head. Now we're safe. Just a little further. That was a lie, too. China to South Korea was still ahead of us, and it might be the harder half. But in that moment, I just needed to let everyone breathe. The real crisis came the next morning. The Chinese contact shook us awake at dawn. We have a problem. Public security is searching the area. Public security Chinese police. When they caught North Korean defectors, they sent them back. Forced repatriation. Back to North Korea meant prison camps. The end. What do we do? Leave right now. Into the hills. There's another village on the other side. My cousin lives there. Hide with them. No time to gather anything. We were out the back door and running toward the hills within minutes. I had Yunji on my back again. Heavier than the night before, my body had nothing left. Behind us in the village, dogs barking. Faster. We pushed up the slope. An hour in, I looked back down. Several vehicles in the village. Police cars. And people moving toward the hillside. They were following. Keep going. 2 hours more. We crested the ridge and spotted a small settlement in the valley below. Down we went. Found the house the man had described, an old farmhouse, worn and low. We knocked. An older woman answered. Korean Chinese by her speech. Come in. Quickly. She took us to a basement, small, no windows, just a room. Stay here. Don't come up. I'll get you when they've passed. We didn't know if that meant 1 day or a week. Onji fell asleep against me. Minho closed his eyes against the wall. My wife took my hand. We're going to make it, right? I squeezed back. We have to. I meant it. But I wasn't certain. China to South Korea, the full route. I knew it wouldn't be easy. But we'd crossed the Tuman River. We were halfway. The other half was what was left. We spent 3 days in that basement. No windows, no way to tell day from night. The Korean Chinese woman brought food twice a day. Rice, kimchi, sometimes soup. We weren't hungry, but the kids were wearing thin. Unji kept asking to go upstairs. 3 days in a lightless room is a long time for an 8-year-old. When can we go up? I don't like it here. Soon. A little longer. Minho said almost nothing. He sat in the corner, staring at the wall. I went and sat next to him. You okay? Yeah. What are you thinking about? After a long silence, he said, Dad, what about Grandma and Grandpa? My parents. Left behind in Pyongyang? My chest tightened. It wasn't that I hadn't thought about it, I'd been thinking about it the whole time. I just kept looking away from it. They'll be fine. A lie. They wouldn't be fine. Once it was known that we'd defected, my parents would be caught in the Yonjwaje system, guilt by association. They could be sent to a prison camp. They probably already had been. But how do you say that to your child? Will we ever see them again? Minho's eyes were wet. I pulled him close. I had no words. Then, above us, footsteps fast, urgent, and the basement door flew open. The Korean Chinese woman. Get out now. Public security is coming to this village. An hour away. My heart dropped. More running. We scrambled up out of the basement. She took us to the back door. Take that path. 30 minutes to the main road. A car will be waiting the broker's people. They'll take you to the next safe house. I bowed to her. Thank you. Thank you. Go. No time. We ran. Unji on my back again. My legs had nothing left days without proper food or sleep. But stopping wasn't possible. 30 minutes of trail. A main road appeared and an old truck idling at the shoulder. The driver leaned out. Park Jong-soo? Yes. Get in the back. The cargo hold was packed with boxes. We squeezed between them. The truck moved. No windows, no idea where we were headed. Just the jolting road beneath us and cold air finding gaps in the crates. Yoonji burrowed into my chest. Dad, I'm cold. Just a little longer. 2, maybe 3 hours passed. The truck stopped. Out. We climbed down into an unfamiliar town, bigger buildings, a more developed street. Where are we? Yanji. Yanji, the capital of China's Korean Autonomous Prefecture, a place where many people speak Korean. The driver took us through a narrow alley to an old apartment building up to the 3rd floor into a small room. Wait here. Someone will contact you in a few days about the next step. What is the next step? They'll arrange the route to South Korea. He left. Just us in the room. 1 bed, 1 bathroom, a window looking out on the alley below. Better than the basement, at least light came through. My wife bathed the children first time in days. Unji giggled at the warm water, and that sound cracked something open in my chest. I stood at the window and looked out at the Yanji streets. People passing, Korean script mixed in with Chinese on the signs. Like North Korea, but different. Freer. The faces were lighter. We couldn't walk out there, not without risking everything. But we could see it. 4 days in Yanji. We didn't leave the room once. A broker contact brought food, instant noodles, bread, sometimes rice. Yoonji ate the noodles and said, Dad, these taste different. Better than the ones back home. Chinese instant noodles, a flavor she'd never had. She was happy about noodles. Watching that, I thought we made the right choice, no matter how hard this is. On the 4th evening, a new broker contact appeared. Different man, maybe 30. You leave tomorrow. 4 a.m. Be packed. Tomorrow? South. There's a route into South Korea from there. I didn't ask more. Brokers compartmentalize. Each person knows only their piece of the route. If one person is caught, the whole network doesn't go down. At 4 a.m., the car came. We were moving again. 3 weeks followed. I won't try to tell you all of it. But here's what I can say. We rode trains with forged identification documents. 3 inspections. Every time, the conductor looking at my papers, looking at my face, looking at my papers again. Each second stretched like a minute. We crossed mountains on foot. 6 hours with Yoonji on my back. My shoulders felt like they were being pulled apart. My hands were cut, my knees scraped raw. We couldn't stop. We crossed 2 more borders into Vietnam, then into Laos. Hide, walk, ride, repeat. A few days in a basement. A few days in the hills. A few days in a stranger's house. Once we pressed flat into the brush while a patrol passed within arm's reach. I held my hand over Unji's mouth. If she cried, it was over. One day we went without any food at all. Another day we walked in the rain for hours, shoes soaked through, feet swollen. My wife's feet blistered and bled. We kept walking. We had to stay alive. And then we reached Laos, the capital Vientiane. A broker brought us to within a block of the South Korean embassy, 200 meters from here. Walk through that door and it's over. I looked at the building, the Korean flag moving in the wind. 200 meters. My legs buckled. 3 weeks of holding everything together and suddenly it was right there. I took my wife's hand. Minho and Yoonji stood next to me. Let's go. 1 step at a time toward the embassy gate. 200 meters had never felt so long. A security guard looked up. My voice was shaking. We came from North Korea. Please help us. 20 years of loyalty to one country. And I was asking another country to take us in, but those same words were the ones that kept my family alive. The guard spoke into his radio. The gate opened. We walked through. The moment we were inside, Yoonji took my hand. Dad, are we here? Is this the end? I nodded. Yes, we're here. It had been exactly 1 month since we left North Korea. 24 hours to cross the Tuman. 3 weeks through China. 3 more border crossings. 4 of us, and we were all standing here. Alive. In the embassy lobby, my wife sank to her knees and wept, shoulders shaking without a sound. Minho cried, loud and open, the way a 12-year-old boy cries when he's finally allowed to. Yoonji wasn't sure what was happening, so she looked at all of us and started crying too. Me, I didn't cry. I couldn't. Too much had happened. The feeling had gone somewhere else. Instead, I looked up at the ceiling, fluorescent lights, white and steady, and I thought we made it. My family made it. We spent 2 weeks at the embassy. Interviews, health screenings, paperwork. Then we boarded a plane. When we landed at Incheon Airport, I stood on the tarmac for a long moment. I couldn't quite believe the ground beneath my feet was South Korean soil. That's how we arrived. We live in Busan now. I work at a small restaurant. I'm a cook, it's all I've ever been. 20 years of the craft doesn't disappear. But arriving in South Korea didn't mean it was over. We still owed the broker money. 130 million won total. I couldn't cover all of it. There's still 80 million won left to pay. 2 million won every month. At this rate, it'll take 3 more years to clear the debt. And sometimes, in the middle of cooking, I'll be standing over a pot of soup and my hands just stop. That scene comes back. Choi Dong-cheol reaching into his pocket. The white powder. My son's pale face running toward me through the door. And I'll stand there motionless while the soup boils over. Some nights I can't sleep. I think about my parents in Pyongyang. What happened to them? Are they in a camp somewhere? Are they still alive? There's no way to reach them. There may never be. Minho asks me sometimes, Dad, will we ever see Grandma and Grandpa again? I don't answer. I just run my hand over his hair. But I don't regret it. I'm glad we came. I know it when I see Yoonji running around with her friends at school, laughing. When I hear Minho talk about what he wants to be. He said he wants to become a doctor. In North Korea, that dream would have been impossible, your songbun. Your class background closes doors before you even approach them. Here it's different. Work hard enough and the door stays open. That's what freedom means. Today I cook soup at a restaurant. When customers tell me it's good, it makes me happy that skill is 20 years deep. Back then I cooked food that could have been used to kill. Now I cook food that makes people happy. That difference means everything to me. Someday I hope the two Koreas become one. If that happens, I could visit my parents' graves, walk the streets where I grew up. Until that day comes, I'll keep living here and doing it well. This has been my story.